All right. Well, clearly that last video deserves some follow up, and based on some of the comments that I'm seeing, I'm going to do some. I'm going to give you some follow up, and I'm going to tell you that if you're going into the field of radiography, all is not lost. Let me tell you that you can still find joy in the field of radiography, but what you have to guard yourself against or protect yourself with is you have to, right from the onset, including all the way to beginning of school, you absolutely have to put yourself first, because nobody else will. The school will not put you first. The job will not put you first. And let me back that up with some real world examples. And I have so much to share about this stuff that it's going to be, I might be all over the place, but let's try to keep to some basic topics. You are, to the other side of the table, an employee, a student, most importantly, a source of income. Okay. To the schools, you are a tuition payer. You are someone that I can't even say keeps the lights on anymore, because God bless these community programs that charge $7,000 for a 2-year program, because they're barely getting by. They have 10 to 15 students at $8,000 a pop. You think that's pretty decent money, but it's just not. So you look at private institutions, and I won't say names, but there are private schools teaching radiography to the tune of 30, 40, $50,000 for the exact same program. And now those, I will tell you my opinion, those schools should be catering to the student and taking care of you and teaching you everything you need to know and bending over backwards, so to speak, to make sure you have every tool in the possible tool belt to help you learn radiography and pass the boards. They just don't make a lot of money. They can't afford all the skeletons. They can't afford, like if it were up to me, every student would have their own skeleton. It's like $50, 60, $70 on Amazon for an anatomically correct plastic skeleton. I mean, even if it's not 100%, you can get the Halloween skeletons. I've been giving them away on my blog and my YouTube channel for years. So they've been like 50, $60. But you can use those skeletons to practice positioning and all kinds of things. And these school programs, just don't have the funds. But let me say, and what I'll just do for today is I'm going to go through some of these comments in here, like Shrimpy and McDougal. I just started a 2-year for this. Should I go into something else? You need to ask yourself why you went into it. If you went into it to make good money, that's still a good option. And I have videos on this channel and on my blog about how you can make 6 figures. You literally can make 6 figures as an X-ray tech. So if you got into it to make money, you can still do that. If you got into it to help people, you can still do that, because once you see how it all works, take a patient coming into the emergency room, for example. Once they get past the front desk and get into a room and actually get seen by a human being that's asking them questions and doing primary exams and whatnot, and not just somebody from billing asking for billing information and all that. The nurse, the CNA, the doctor, somebody will triage that patient, and 9 times out of 10, that patient is going to either have blood work or radiology exams ordered. Those 2 things, along with the primary and secondary assessment from the physician, are kind of the basic diagram of medicine, right? You got to start poking and prodding and seeing what's in the results to then start determining what's going on, coupled with symptoms and everything else. So if you're in radiography school for a lucrative career, or a career that helps people, or even kind of like me, I like the problem solving aspect. I like the science tech part and the problem solving. Somebody comes in with an ache and pain, they don't know what it is, the doctor doesn't know what it is, chronic or acute. You run them through one of your machines and you can see it right there. You can clearly see a problem most of the time. You can't always solve it. The human body is incredibly complex, so you don't always know what's going on, but we are the front line in the world of radiology. Us in the lab are pretty much we give all the answers and then the doctors interpret what we have provided and they make a plan from there. So I'm not saying run from the job, whether you're in it as an employee or you're a student. What I'm saying is be prepared to defend yourself. Be prepared to know yourself and your boundaries to a T, like know exactly. If I'm an employee, I am working this shift and I am leaving when I'm done with my last patient. And if I'm not on call, you are not forcing me in for another shift. If I'm off tomorrow, you are not forcing me in to take that shift because somebody else called off. You have to know your boundaries, because if you're Mr. Nice Guy, like I was for many, many years, you pick up all these shifts and you take all this extra coverage. And at the end of the day, you're left with nothing, really. You're left with, I mean, as an employee, if you're smart enough to put money away into a 401k and invest, that is all you're going to have at the end of a 20-year career. Whereas, now that I can kind of see the big picture a little bit more clearly, if I had taken the 25 years of intensity that I put into the world of radiology and created my own company of some type, I would have a phenomenal company that would be making decent money, at least what I'm making in radiology. And I'd be able to, more importantly, sell that company to somebody else and retire. When you're in the world of radiology or healthcare in general, once you retire, there's nothing for you to sell, to give off, to give the rights to market. It's a career that once you're done, you're just done. And hopefully you saved up enough money to live on. But as we're seeing right now in this day and age, with the price of housing and the cost of groceries and all that, it's getting harder and harder for people to make ends meet. And when you're controlled by the job that you have, like look at the whole COVID shot thing. How many people had to get the COVID shot and they didn't want it, but they had to because they were going to lose the job that they went to 2 years of X-ray school for, or 2 years of ultrasound school, or they had 10 years experience on the job. And now they're being told, I don't care, you're going to get fired if you don't get this shot. I mean, I'm so glad I was out of it by then. I left the field at the end of 19, just months before COVID hit. I was actually working an interim gig at another facility. It was a 90-day interim director spot. And that thing came out. Of course, they didn't make us. I was in a small enough town. They knew better. But everybody across the country was being told you have to take it or you're going to get fired. And many people got fired. Many people quit. I just don't have a lot of patience for an industry that's supposed to be all about health and welfare, mandating what you do. But that's a whole nother topic. So to Shrimpy McDougal, should you consider something else? You're going to have to find a passion. If you have a passion for helping people and you have this passion for medicine, even though you don't know much about it, maybe, but if medicine always called to me. I have family steeped in medicine. I always wanted to be in medicine. There was something about it that called out to me, and I started in the lab. I was a phlebotomist for 10 years and did lab work and loved it. It just didn't pay very well. I took an EMT course, thought about being an EMT to look at traumas and do that stuff. And then I got into X-ray school and went up the ladder in X-ray school. And I really enjoyed it. But the common theme now is you just don't matter to the company. And if you're one of the lucky people, and there's a comment on here that says, wow, I feel really lucky to be where I'm at, those do still exist. And if you can find one of those, grab onto it and don't let go. And I'm talking about the kind of company where the team all works together and they care about each other and they watch out for each other and they cover each other. Like I've been in places where if somebody needs to take time off because of an illness in the family or something, nobody in the department would care. They'd be like, well, I already got my shifts. I can't take on extra work. I have my work-life balance, which, if that's their line in the sand, good for them. But there comes time when you got to kind of help out the team, because you never know when that's going to come back around to you as well. And I feel like a lot of that is gone now. I pulled hundreds, if not thousands, of double shifts, extra shifts, overnights, weekends. In fact, I was just talking about this the other day. For holidays, nobody wants to work holidays. So what we decided to do as a team back in the day was each of us would take 2 hours. Like on Christmas Day, somebody would work 2 hours and somebody else would come in and relieve them for 2 hours and 2 hours. That way, everybody got time with their family on Christmas, but Christmas still got covered. Patients still got seen. And oftentimes we would, if my shift was the fourth one down the chain, I'd bring in the leftovers from the lunch or whatever to the department and we'd sit there and eat and enjoy it or whatever. It's just more like social network. I don't know what you want to call it, but anymore, it's just so segmented and broken up and you do your thing and I'll do my thing. Maybe that's the difference too between working in a smaller hospital versus a larger hospital. But Shrimpy, I'm not telling you to bail. I'm telling you, watch out for yourself. That's what I'm saying, because uh, you'll get frustrated. Like, okay, let me just take it down to the school level. When I was in my clinical rotation, and this was probably eye opener number 5 while I was in Xray school, things that I was just like, wow, what? Are you kidding me? The first was when I learned about BEs after I was already in the program. I'm like, wait, what? Nobody said anything about those in the brochure. Not that it made a difference. I just think it's funny how they omit certain things, when they're trying to get you in the program, and then you get in it and find out you got to do barium minimus. But I was at a clinical rotation and I had a clinical preceptor there, the person that was kind of over us at the hospital, who worked for the hospital. And I kept presenting my comps to that CI to say, hey, did I do this good enough? Can I get your seal of approval? Can you sign off on it so I can move on? And this one particular CI, and I've told this story before if you watch my channel, but this one particular CI kept denying me, declining me. And I had a peer in my program at the same clinical site with me, and he and I we were in a competition who could get the most comps. It was a healthy competition, and I really enjoyed having clinicals with this guy, and he's still in the field. But he kept getting things comped and I kept getting denied. And there came a point when I'm like, okay, either you're discriminating against me or you don't like me, or something's going on here. And so one time I did, it was either a hand or a foot, and they said, no, you didn't do it right, I'm not comping you off. And he walked away, and somebody else walked up, and I threw my thumbs up. That's how old this was. I threw my thumbs up and I said, hey, as a technologist, would you sign off on this? Did I do a good enough job? And that person, looked over all my stuff, all 3 views, and said, yeah, I would. And I slid my paper out there and they signed it, and I put it in my notebook, and I thought, do I have something here? Is there a grounds for something here? And long story short, that got back to the first person, to the CI. It got back to the CI that I had somebody else sign it after they said no. And when he found that out, he called my school and said, your student is going behind my back and getting things signed off. And now I hadn't turned anything in at this point. I was still kind of building a case, if you will. I was still kind of trying to figure out, why is this one particular person always shooting me down? And would it be consistent across all the other employees? And so before anything else even occurred, my school called me in and put me on notice that it wasn't a suspension, it was kind of a last warning. If you mess up again at this clinical site, you're out, because they made it abundantly clear that that clinical site was 10 times more important than me as a singular student. Now, over the years, seeing this through the glass of administrator and professor and as a tech and all that, these clinical sites are very important. They are very important. They're critical, crucial to any radiography program. Obviously, you can't have a program without clinical sites. However, this takes me all the way back to what I'm telling Shrimpy, is that you have to make yourself first and foremost, because nobody else will. This particular school was more worried about their clinical site than their student. And if they had bothered to ask me what was going on, I would have told them, this one particular CI is discriminating against me. And that should have been paramount. That should have been a concern. That should have raised red flags. It should have gone to HR. It should have gone to the school. Everybody should have had a meeting about it. We should have sat down and said, how come you keep red flagging the student when other people aren't? What's the deal? What's going on? As I once learned from one of my favorite HR directors, his favorite phrase was, help me understand. And I encourage you to use that, whether you're a student or an employee. When you're trying to get to the bottom of something, say, help me understand why you keep denying all my comps, but everybody that works with you is okay with them. And that includes the exact same comps. That's what I was trying to prove. But instead of anybody caring about what was going on at that clinical site, I was put on notice as a student that if I do anything else like that, I was going to be dropped from the program in the name of making that clinical site happy. And that was really kind of the first big eye opener of holy cow. And I paid, that was 2003, 2004, and I was paying $18,000 at that time to go to this private Xray school. And that was a huge eye opener. And that kind of thing is really what has culminated time and time again over my 20 plus years in radiology, to just kind of prove what I'm saying to you guys is you're the bottom of the ladder to everybody in every respect. Your school teacher may care about you and care about your success. But in the end, what really matters most is your grades. It matters that you're paying tuition to help keep the school afloat. And it matters because I guarantee you stop paying tuition, doesn't matter how good of a student you are, how good they like you, they'll kick you out of the program, right? Money comes first. And then it's about your adherence to the guidelines and your grades, because schools get graded, so to speak, on the outcomes is the big word, that the organizing bodies that oversee radiography programs monitor the kind of health, if you will, of the Xray programs. So if you're graduating class after class after class, and those students either aren't passing the ARRT exam or they're not graduating the class or whatever, they will come down on that program and it would no longer be accredited. What I'm telling you, Shrimpy, is whether you're in the program or you get a job at the hospital, you have to protect yourself. You have to know the right terminology to use to protect yourself. You have to say, I'm feeling harassed, I'm feeling bullied, I don't feel safe in this environment. You have to learn what those trigger words are so that when things happen to you, if they do, you will be able to defend yourself in a way that keeps your student's position safe or keeps your job safe, because it doesn't take long for a school to kick you out or a job to fire you, especially in a right to work state. They can fire you for any reason. But if you get ahead of problems by lodging complaints or lodging concerns with the counselor at the school or the HR department at the hospital, if you have concerns documented, and always keep a copy for yourself and not in your school email and not in your work email, because they turn that off when you're gone and you no longer have access to that. Always email a copy of things to yourself in your personal email and keep a file of everything. If something happens to you and you're not happy about it, even if nothing is said, you need to either right then and there or as soon as you can email yourself a recollection of that event for your own records. And you can put all the squishy, as we say, emotional stuff into it if you want, but if you ever submit this stuff, you just have to stick to the facts. At 10 p.m. Thursday night, my shift was over, and so approached me and said I had to stay another 30 minutes because the next person wasn't here yet. And I told them, I'm sorry, my shift's over, I have things I have to do, and they threatened me with a write-up if I didn't stay or whatever. You just state this date and this time, this person stated these things to me, and my response was these things. And you keep all that stuff in a folder, because over the years, you never know. I have been blindsided by things. I have been written up for things that happened to me in a different job role, a different job title, a job I had been promoted out of. And I'm like, wait a minute, this stuff in this write-up is related to my old job, and now I'm in the new job that you promoted me into. And they, that didn't matter. Well, we still have these concerns, and we're still going to put them in the record that we're concerned. I'm like, so that job, that was one of those big red flags that I should have ran when I when I started seeing those red flags, but being the idiot, being the loyal person that I was raised to be. See, I was raised, and part of what you're hearing out of me in these past few videos is this Gen X generation where we were taught by our boomer parents that you stay at your job for 30 years, and when you graduate, when you retire, you're going to get this golden parachute that's going to take care of you for the rest of your life. And there'll be this big retirement party in your name. You get this gold Rolex, or whatever it is for all that hard work and dedication. And that doesn't exist anymore. Companies, and almost all of you know somebody this has happened to, but companies now, it happened to my stepfather who went into Xray after this. But what he did was he was with this paper bag making company for 20 something years. He was like third in command on the floor, front line. And it came time to start laying people off and saving money. And what it looked like to us was they just took the top earners and cut like the top 10. And he was one of them. He'd been there 26 years and just gone. No reason at all. Exemplary employee. And so that's what's happening. That is very common now in the workplace. These hospitals will not hesitate to let you go for any reason or for no reason if you get high enough up the pay scale, or if they think they can get somebody to do it cheaper, or even if some new senior management team comes in and says, hey, I'm from this big fancy, I've seen this, I'm from this big fancy conglomerate in California, and this is how we do things. So now that I'm here in your town, we're going to follow what they did. And we're going to, one of them is the old Jack Welch theory of calling the bottom 10% of any workforce, right? You figure out who your bottom 10% of a workforce is, and you just let them go. And the theory is every year that team gets better and better because you're always dropping that bottom 10%. Well, there's a lot of problems with that theory, but that is a very common philosophy in business, including hospital these days. So now that you've got, look at the emergence of limited Xray techs. When the notion of a physician assistant first came out, the doctors were like, no way, man, no way are you letting these people do most of what we do with only 2 years of schooling. You're not taking away our jobs. And they fought it and fought it and fought it until they figured out, oh, we can employ these guys and they can start doing some of the dirt work, the junk work, the stuff we don't want to do for us so that we can be more profitable. And they learned how to acquiesce those roles. And now you got PAs everywhere. Nurse practitioners did the same thing. The anesthesiologist said, no way, you are not bringing in nurse anesthetists to do what we do. We are special people and nobody can do what we do. And now you've got nurse anesthetists everywhere because the anesthesiologist is the bottom dollar. They realize, well, I can have the nurse anesthetist do all this work and I can go play golf and I'm still making 75% of the cash or whatever, because I'm only paying them 25% of it or whatever the breakdown is. So you're going to start seeing all these different models come into the workplace where the Xray tech, they're going to have to keep paying you more because people quit and you see that everywhere you go, people quit and they don't have enough staff. And then they hire travelers at 3 times the cost, but yet they won't give a raise to the current staff. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. So let me see. I mean, I've been rambling for a while now, and I'm only through the first comment here. I made a comment about how I had a senior administrator, and this is the past, I'd say past 10 years. I had a senior administrator come to me one time, and they had just gotten out of a meeting about how they needed to save money. They didn't, they always think they know how radiology works, but they don't. And so, and this, if you notice, once you get outside of radiology, you always have your supervisors, managers, and directors in radiology. But once you step out to that senior manager role, look at all the hats they wear. And the one that was managing me had me and the lab and supply chain and engineering, food and nutrition. Just all these departments that are vastly different, right? So how do you put somebody in a position to adequately manage all these subspecialties when they don't have the specific knowledge of those subspecialties? Well, you hope that they lean on the expertise of the person running the department, i.e. the radiology director, but not always. So this comment on this video, I had a senior administrator come in and say, here's an idea. I want you to put your whole department on call, everybody on call. And then when the orders start to come in, then start calling them in as the modalities need them. And you know, she's just, I could see the dollar signs. We're just going to save so much money putting everybody on call. And I said, you're kidding, right? These people were hired as full-time staff. You can't just put them on call. And we had this debate, and she said, well, they might even make more money this way because, you know, I know that when you guys get called in, you make time and a half for the time that you come in. And I'm like, and so how are you thinking this is a good idea then? So I just share that with you to illustrate that there are administrators that don't really know what's going on, and the goals they're trying to achieve are all the same. Do more with less, make more money with less employees, squeeze out more profit for the hospital. And so that's the story about that administrator. SC Gerald, our program allowed 18, and there were 196 applicants. I went the travel route. I hear so many stories like what you're describing, techs that have 30 years experience going travel routes because the hospitals they've been working for 20 plus years put them on 24/7 call with only one tech. It's ridiculous. So that's a good call out for Shrimpy. You know, if you still want to get into it and you learn how to draw the line on who you are and what you stand for and what you'll put up with. And here's the thing I could never seem to get across to the technologists. And one of the purposes of my channel and my Facebook group, the hospital and the senior administrators will never understand what you are truly worth, because if you boil it all down, strip it all down, who can do what you do? So back that up a minute. Let's think about the patient that comes into the emergency room to get seen. They have to get vital signs taken. Who can take vital signs? CNAs, MAs, nurses, us, rad techs are trained to take vitals. Respiratory therapy can take vitals. Doctors certainly know how to take vitals. Okay, so when it comes to vitals, a lot of people can do that. So if your CNAs went on strike, probably why you never see that happening. Okay, so now they move to lab work. The doctor orders lab work. If the lab went on strike, is there anyone else that could draw that blood? CNAs can draw blood. LPNs can draw blood. Nurses can draw blood. Doctors can draw blood. We in radiology know how to draw blood. A lot of people can draw blood. So I'm not saying the lab's not critical, because the trick there is who's going to run the test. If the lab went on strike, there's nobody to run the test. That's where the true gold comes in. Now you can say, well, we'll just send it to a send-out lab. No, you cannot send every single Kim panel, CBC, PTT. You cannot send everything to a send-out lab. It would take too long to get results. Well, then we'll do point-of-care testing. Okay, now you got to train all your LPNs or CNAs or nurses or somebody to work all those point-of-cares. And yes, they do glucometers and they do, you know, some basic testing. But if you were to give an entire lab work, a lab directory of exams to that staff and have to do point-of-care, it's not going to work. And that's why I always say the lab is equal their weight in gold as well. The lab and radiology, because nobody else can do what they do. You can farm out the lab test to an outpatient lab testing company, MetWest Clinical Corning, Damon, whoever is out there now. But you can't farm out the X-ray. Patient comes in to do the X-ray. Who are you going to farm that out to? So what I'm getting to is rad techs are worth their weight in gold, and they don't know it, and they allow themselves to be trampled on and treated like garbage in the means of low pay, bad hours, no respect. You're a button pusher. You don't know what you're doing. Just go take your picture, monkey boy. I mean, look, go into any rad tech forum, whether it's my Facebook group or the 50 other ones on Facebook, and look at all the memes about how we're called button pushers and treated like we're the lowest rung on the ladder. And I try to tell you techs, nobody, and people, you know, people outside our world think, well, the radiologist is a doctor in radiology. He can do it. No, he can't. Radiologists cannot do an MRI. Radiologists cannot do a CT scan. They cannot take X-rays. You might find some that can handle a transducer and locate some fluid for a thoracentesis or something like that. But you tell me that a radiology department goes on strike, just the techs go on strike, that the hospital will be okay because the radiologists will step in and do all the exams? Hell no, they're not going to do that. First of all, they don't know how. Second of all, they don't even want to do what they're already doing. They don't want to step outside of their office for a consult. They don't want you knocking on their door, bugging them while they're trying, because they're paid usually. I mean, there's different pay models, but radiologists are paid by the number of exams they read. So every time you disrupt them with a question or here's another thing that you got to do or whatever, it stops them in their flow of making money. So I'm back to the travel route. You can go the travel route and you can make even more money as a tech. It's just super hard to go travel right out of school. I'm not saying it can't be done, because the whole fake it till you make it thing can come into play there. If you're licensed and you know how to do X-ray and you're confident and you can speak to people and you don't have an issue with going someplace where you don't know anybody or any of the equipment and diving right in and figuring it out, traveling is 100% for you if you can do all that, because it pays more. You get to move around every 13 weeks or every 6 months to a new place. You can go to Hawaii, you can go to the beach, you can go anywhere you want and do these travel gigs, because there's always administrators that can't keep the department staffed because they're not treating the techs appropriately and they're not paying them right. And they default to paying travelers to cover. So there's my take on travelers. If you want to be a traveler, go do it. It would be awesome. That was kind of the initial intent of my wife and I. She's an X-ray tech as well. We were going to grow old and travel together. Hospitals are complaining that travelers are breaking the hospital, yet they realize they need us and all their permanent staff has quit. Now you have the travel agencies ripping off the hospitals and the radiographers by paying the traveler $2,000 a week and charging the hospital $4,000 a week. Well, that's how that model works. Years ago, I did the same thing in the swimming pool industry. I was in the Phoenix, Arizona market, trying to decide what kind of job I wanted to create for myself. And I was sitting up on Squaw Peak, it was called at the time, looking down at all these houses with all these pools. And I'm thinking, what kind of job can I create that is in high demand here? And then I realized there's a pool in every backyard. So I started a swimming pool service and repair company. And I did that for 3 or 4 years. And I made really good money and I enjoyed it. But the negative to that is you're always chasing people for their money. You know, if they are behind on their bills, that's you. You're not collecting the money for the work you already did. And so that led me to think, well, I want a job that always pays me on time, which is how I ended up in healthcare. And the funny thing about that is I actually worked for a hospital that started to get behind on their bills, and we went without paychecks. Probably 4 or 5 times total, we didn't get a paycheck on time. They eventually caught up, but can you imagine that? Can you imagine you're working at a pretty big hospital and payday's coming and they say, you know, we're really sorry, but we're not going to be able to pay you because we are a little bit behind on some payments and we're getting caught up, but we will get you paid in the next week. And this happened at it was called Arizona Regional Medical Center, if you want proof. ARMC took over the old Mesa General, which was part of the IASIS system. So I don't even think the IASIS system's still around, but ARMC ran into money troubles and didn't pay us. And this all comes back to the whole loyalty thing. See, and what I'm trying to warn you guys about is don't be so loyal that when you see these big red flags, you just blow it off. See, I blew that off. I blew off that I didn't get paid 4 or 5 times in a row, which was rough. I had a family. I had 6 kids and my wife. But I said, oh, you know, everybody has hard times. And these guys have really worked with me. I went to X-ray school and did my clinicals here. And then I went to ultrasound school and I did my clinicals here. And I kind of grew up through that system, you know, moonlighting in other systems. But I had this stupid Gen X loyalty gene that said, stay, stay, stay. And the end of that story is they were bought out by another system who fired me without even thinking twice about it because of the money I was making. So all that loyalty didn't matter at all in the end because somebody else bought them that didn't care. So, you know, I don't know how much longer. There's so much to kind of reveal about the behind the scenes in the world of radiology that I guess just for the crux of this particular video, you have to know that you have to have a base of who you are and what lines you will not cross. And you have to be firm in sticking to those items. You know, if you have a family and that means a lot to you, which it should, then don't give up your family time because somebody needs help at the office. I'm sorry, family comes first, and there's there's a million jobs out there. Every hospital is hurting for you guys. Don't put up with garbage at the job site because somebody else will pay you more money and treat you just the same, maybe a little bit better, but at least get more money if you're going to be treated like a number. Case in point, as a radiology director, I was in the middle of a huge $10 million negotiation, right? I had this outpatient imaging center that I had designed and helped build, and I had to stock it with everything, a 3T MRI, a CT scanner, an X-ray room, 2 IR rooms, 2 ultrasound rooms, reading rooms, the whole 9 yards. And I decided to pull from GE, Siemens, and a third-party company, but most of their equipment was Carestream. And we were in negotiations, right? The way this works at this level is each one of these 3 companies is sitting at a different set of tables in the cafeteria at the hospital, and we're in a conference room, and one at a time, a company would come in and pitch us. Here's our package for all this equipment, and here's how much we'll sell to you for, and here's what kind of service packages we'll give you. And we're going, okay, great, that's fabulous. Okay, great. Next, and they'd go out, and the next company would come in, and we'd go through all 3 of them, and we'd see what the price was, what kind of service we'd get. And then that third one would go back out there, and then we'd have our little huddle. Okay, what can we do? Where can we trim the fat? Where can we make this better for us? Okay, well, let's tell them that we'll give them a 3-year contract instead of a 1-year contract. And let's ask for biomed training for our own people on top. If we go with you, we want 2 more, 2 more of our staff to fly to your place to do training, whatever. So we're going through all this, and I'm in the middle of this. I'm the radiology director, and the CFO is there, and the head of IT is there, and my boss is there, and the head radiologist is there, and everybody's there. And I get a call that one of my daughters is in a car wreck. And it was in between having people in there. So I didn't get the news when we were right in the middle, but somebody else was about to come in. I get this call, your daughter's been in a car wreck. And I'm like, okay. I called my wife and I said, are you aware that she's been in a car wreck? And she said, yes. And I've talked to her, and she's a little shaken up, but she's okay. She's not hurt. She's okay. And I said, okay, look, I'm right in the middle of this huge $10 million thing, right? I mean, this is my legacy. This is one of my defining moments as a radiology director, to put together this big package thing. And the end results are going to crush you. You're not going to believe what happened. So I have this conversation with my wife. She assures me my daughter's okay and everything, the car's been already towed off and everybody's fine. And so, the radiologist friend of mine, he's like, do you need to step out? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, no, I've talked to my wife. She's fine. It's a bad thing, but she's okay. Let's keep this going. We get through these negotiations, and this is another one of those defining moments in my career. We get to the point where we're in the final negotiations, and it's just like the top 3 of us in our team, me and my boss, the head of the radiologist, and we're in her office, the boss's office. And I'm saying, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to take these pieces of equipment from this company, and these 2 pieces of equipment from this company, and ultrasound from this one, because they're the best. Because just like everything else in life, no one company makes the best of everything, right? No one automobile company makes the best minivan, best sports car, best SUV, best everything, right? And so, and if you've been in the field, certain brands are better at certain modalities. So I lay this plan out there, and my boss turns to me and says, you know what? We are going to buy everything from one vendor, and it's going to be this particular vendor, which was my number 3 vendor choice out of the 3, the one I like the least. We're going to buy everything from that vendor, and you're going to go back and tell your staff that it's your idea. And I'm like, wait, what? This is not, I did all this research. I did site visits. I went on site visits to other states in airplanes, and went through factories and looked at equipment and did all this research, and I had scorecards, and I took supervisors from each modality and got their input, and I did all this data analysis. And at the end of the day, this administrator said, we will save more money if we buy it all from one vendor, and that vendor has told us what that dollar amount is, and we're going to save the most if we put it all with them. So you're going to go with them, and you're going to tell your staff that it was your idea. And I was just beside myself. I was probably I don't even know how to describe it. And that administrator said, I think I said, I'm going to take the rest of the day off, because the next words out of the administrator's mouth was, I think you should, because you're red from the neck up. That's how mad I was that all of this homework, all this research and groundwork, back study that I've done for this legacy I was going to make about this imaging center I was creating was just tossed in the trash, because the hospital, and really it's just this administrator, this hospital wanted to say to her boss, I got us this sweet deal by going with one company. We're going to save all this money and it's going to be great, and yay me. But I had to, she dumped it on me to convince the staff, because the staff knew better. Staff knows, technologist knows. We all know that certain, we won't say names, suck at ultrasound or suck at MRI scanners or whatever. We all know that. So not only did she rip that from my hands and make that decision, but then she wanted me to go back and tell and the next day I came in and we had a staff meeting and I kind of rolled it out to the staff and told them what we were doing. And they knew. They looked at me and they were like, at first they were like, wait, what? And then I just couldn't say it in a way that was convincing, because it was just total horseshit. And so they knew, they all knew. And that to me was another one of these big eye-opening moments where it doesn't matter how much you care about your job or how much you push your family aside and put aside those family moments for your job. At the end of the day, you're never going to get an award that says, here's for the 365 hours that you didn't spend with your family because you cared about the company. It's not a thing. Nobody cares. And so that's what I'm sharing with you today in this video, is know who you are and what you stand for, and who you are as an employee and a person, and be ready to defend that, because it will get called upon. It will get tested. They may even threaten you with your school or your job. Look, if you're not going to do this, we'll find somebody that can. Well, okay, I guess if that's how you feel. I mean, I know a guy, he's been in it almost as long as me, and he got threatened with the COVID shot, stood his ground, said, nope, you're going to have to fire me then. And they said they were going to fire him and, stressed him out and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it all just went away, and he kept his job and nobody said anything. And he was like, well, I'll be damned. Look at that. I didn't have to get it after all. I guess it wasn't such a big deal after all. And so, that's what I'm sharing. That's what these videos, I sat behind that desk for years and years watching this stuff going, surely I can make a difference. Surely I can do. And I did a lot of things as a director. I did a lot of programs that aided the technologists. I promoted people. I always hired from within and promoted from within. I never brought anybody from outside to fill a position that was an advanced modality. I believe in creating the stepping stone. If you're loyal to the company, I will work you up that chain. And in the end, none of it mattered. Doesn't matter how much money I made the company. Doesn't matter how many hours I saved, how many months we went with no safety incidences. Look on LinkedIn at your radiology director resumes and how long they've been in those positions. You'll find a couple that have been there 16 years, and those are the lucky ones. Those are the ones that are valued for what they do. But look at all the other ones that are 2 years, 1.5 years, 3 year, 1 year. Yeah, anyway, so I'll go over a couple more. Colleen said, I'm honestly thankful for people like you. Thank you, Colleen. I was inspired to be one too, but life always got in the way. My advice is to pray over it and plan for that decision. Thank you for all the lives you've touched. I can only imagine you're an amazing person. Well, thank you so much. I started this channel and my blog about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, because I felt like there wasn't any information out there. And when I tried to research it, I got garbage information from garbage websites that only cared about how many people were clicking on things because they got paid for ads on the site. And it just wasn't accurate. So I've been writing content about what we go through, how we get trained, what we see, a day in the life, trying to explain everything from start to finish so that when people want to know what goes on, they can at least see the hard facts. And now it seems we're coming into the full circle where I'm telling you the ugly as well. So I'm glad you are finding some value in it. Claire, I'm in management, and I really hope You don't leave radiography for good. At the same time, I understand your frustration and feeling the need to get out now before you're defeated, if not already. I just found your channel after seeing this on Facebook a few hours ago. I've been watching your other videos. They are awesome. I could have gone on and on with comments and questions on each one. Thanks for sharing. I hope you keep this up. There's always so much to learn. You know, that may be where I end this journey. Because I thought for me, the journey would end with me riding off into the sunset as a radiography professor. And I still have a lot of passion for that. I could still see really getting into that. But my ideas of what I think would best benefit the students of a radiography program, and I don't really want to move because, to be honest, it doesn't pay that much. So you really have to have a side job if you're going to teach, because teaching pays nothing. It's almost like volunteering. And so in a way, that's kind of what this is. This is volunteering my time to express things and explain things and take questions and help people make better choices. So, you know, I'm done. I'm getting calls. I have been getting calls to, I just got one yesterday, New Hampshire somewhere, wants an interim radiology director. And, you know, I feel bad for those guys. Interim radiology directors, and I've known several, they're usually the retired men and women in about the same position as me. We're done with the garbage, but you know, we'll go back, and really what they want us to do in these interim, if you have an interim, you know, here's what they're being asked to do: come in and trim the fat of all the people that we need to get rid of, that either we can't or that we won't, or that everybody before you has failed to get rid of. Get rid of them, because we're tired of them getting written up. We're tired of having them in meetings. We're tired of other staff complaining about them. And on top of wanting these interim directors to cull the fat, cull, cull the fat, they also want them to tell us what's the real deal with our equipment, because every radiology director wants to replace their equipment, but we don't have the money, so we don't ever want to do it. So tell us if we absolutely have to replace it or not. Tell us about our staffing model, do a temperature check. Is there a big culture issue? And if there is, give us a couple of plans on how to fix that. And then our staffing. We want to know, can you trim the fat in the staffing? Can you come up with any schedules to make these techs work more than they're already working, so that we don't have to hire more? You know, can you do them all on 5/8 instead of 3/12, because 3/12, they do their 3/12, then they don't want to come back in for 4 days. Exactly. That's why we work 3/12s. But hospital administrators hate those 7-on-7 offs, because you get paid like a full-time employee, but you get 7 days off twice a month. Oh, they hate that. They want to unwind those so bad. If you got a 5-on-5 off or 7-on-7 off, cherish it, because they're coming for them. They don't like them at all. So if you're in management, you know, I'd say same thing. Know who you are and what lines you won't cross. Like I should have left that $10 million negotiation. My family needs me. I'm out of here, because in the end, look what happened. It was a joke, total joke. There's Ryan, a truly sad news for you, but I can feel your pain. I can't believe certain people would have so much power. It's sickening and infuriating. I'm truly hoping for change for the better. I love radiography and what I do. See, that's the thing. The techs, we love what we do, and we're happy to do it, and we don't mind doing it, and we get excited about it. We get nerdy. We get geeky and nerdy about, check out this this image of this fractured femur, or check out this angle I did to catch this olecranon, or, you know, we totally geek out on that stuff, but nobody understands it like we do. Nobody appreciates it. Senior administration certainly won't understand it. Your radiologist, if you have a good radiologist, they'll love that stuff. Go tell them, check out this spot film I did, you know, or check out what I found, or check out this new technique that I perfected. Radiologists secretly love what they do. They just may be a bit burned out as well. Google radiologist burnout and look at all the articles about how fast those cats are burning out. You show me a radiology department where the rads are burned out and the techs are burned out too, and vice versa. If your techs are burned out, those rads are equally as burned out, and that department's in trouble. I'll do one more and then I'll go. And then maybe, you know, if you have questions, put them in the comment section, and I'll go through and answer as many as I can. And then I'll share a link to this in the Facebook group in case you do one or the other, so you'll see it's there. I can't say this. Shastri group. I literally had a similar issue. That administrator thought a 2-week MRI course was sufficient to allow a tech to scan, but when they arrived, couldn't have properly qualified techs were expected to train them up, and we said no. Good. do proper programs like we did. Yep. I was in ultrasound school once, and I won't say where because I think the same guy's running it, and I love him to death. He was a great teacher. Actually, why not? It's Gateway Community College, and it's David, I think was his name. Sorry, man, I forgot your name. I even get emails still every now and then. It's not David. I can see his face and his glasses, and he's a huge physics nerd. He loves to talk about string variables. Anyway, he asked our class one day, he said, hey, there's a couple students from like this bridge program that didn't get to do everything that you guys are doing. And I think administration was saying, is it okay if we let them in the program with you and let them finish with you guys so that they can become certified because they didn't get what they were supposed to get wherever they were from or whatever. And I mean, this was, again, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 2008, 2006 to 2008. And as a class, we said, hell no, we're not just going to let people come in here that kind of sort of have a little bit of experience and jump right in with us. We had to have, when I went to ultrasound school, you had to be already licensed in something else just to get into ultrasound school. You had to be either an X-ray tech, licensed, a nuke med tech, which who would do that? But I mean, who'd go nuke med and then ultrasound? Talk about killing yourself. You had to be a nurse, a respiratory therapist, or something else. Respiratory, I already said that. There was 5. So I was already a rad tech, so I got into the ultrasound program. But he said, would you guys mind? Because I'm not going to do it if you don't think it's fair. And we all said, absolutely not. Sorry, we feel bad for whoever these people are, but it is what it is. We had to do what we had to do. Why should we let somebody else cut in? That's the same thing. As the administrators, and you see this on our Facebook group too. People pop in there and go, hey, where can I go to X-ray school completely online and be done in like a year? Well, nowhere, because you can't do it in a year. It takes 2 years. It's classroom and it's clinical. But now watch what's happening. These schools are slowly making all the didactic online, and then you go get your clinicals, whatever's closest to you or wherever they can put you, even if you have to move. And we are moving to online X-ray school, but you still have to have that clinical portion. But these people that are coming on going, where can I go to school for X-ray and just do it all online? And we used to go, that's not a thing. That's a thing now. That is a thing now. And they did the same thing with ultrasound school. You can go right into that off the street. You don't have to be anything else first. So people now that come in and say, I don't want to have to go through X-ray first. Can I just go straight into MRI or ultrasound and make big bucks? And we used to say, no, you have to go the long way like we did. Not anymore. Now you can go straight into MRI. You can go straight into ultrasound. You can do these things without having to be an X-ray tech first. Save 2 years of your life, $20,000 of your money, or whatever it costs. So that's actually where I tend to send people now. If they really love ultrasound and they're coming fresh into the radiology world, don't bother with X-ray school. Go straight into ultrasound. They really don't have anything to do with each other. So let's see. Yeah, we don't need to be accepting all these fly-by-nights that want to do simple things and call themselves techs. Damn, just got my license, but I agree. This is T-Bone. Just got my license, but I agree. I've actually been thinking of going into administration just to get at least some control. Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's exactly what I thought. I thought as a tech, I can affect the community one patient at a time and make their lives better. So as an administrator, I can affect the whole community and make it all better. And I did a lot of things. I started a mobile mammography program using an RV. I mean, I did a lot of things. But at the end of the day, nobody knows about it. I do. And it's on my LinkedIn online resume. Which all LinkedIn is you bragging about what you do because nobody else cares. No jobs are going to brag about how good you do. It's all about you bragging about yourself. Look at LinkedIn. That's why I don't LinkedIn anymore, because it's just everybody saying, I'm so proud to profess that I have accomplished this and here's what I did. Whatever. You got your license, make the best of it. Do what you can with it. But look into all the things you can do. Look into, what about a mobile X-ray program? Is there a mobile radiography program? And I mean, a company in your town that has a van with an X-ray unit that drives all the nursing homes and takes the X-rays. And then now that we're digital, it can all go to your server in your van. You drive the van back to your home base. You send it to your PACS. Your PACS is accessible by a radiologist that you hire ad hoc for 25 bucks a read or whatever. And you've got a little mobile X-ray business going. I would much rather do that than work for a hospital. and you're your own boss and you control your own stuff. You can, there's a lot of things you can sell radiology equipment and teach people how to use it. You can, go to my blog. There's all kinds of different jobs you can do with your X-ray license. If you're stuck in a job you don't like, there's a lot of other options. So, Devin, I'm just about a month into the associate's program. Do you have any advice? I'm almost 30, and this will be my first career aside from my grunt job. Yep, we've all had those. The job itself seems so fun to me once I learn. It is, and the job is great. It's the entity around that job that can make it miserable. And you can block all that out. And that's part of what I'm trying to say. Build yourself this bubble, if you can, of what your job looks like. I go to my job 8 to 5 and I help people and I do x-rays the best I can of high diagnostic quality and I make my radiologists happy and I earn my paycheck. And then when that clock blows, you are done and go find something else that you like to do, hopefully completely unrelated. Because if your whole world is wrapped up, and so that's what I did for a long time. I wrapped my whole world into radiology, and I for 10 months, all the way back to 2010, I worked 2 full-time jobs for 10 months because my company asked me to. I did 312s at my hospital, and they were opening up a new hospital and said, "Would you open this department as well?" And I'm like, "Sure, you mean move over there?" They're like, "No, do 312." So I did 612s a week for 10 months before my family broke. My family just exploded. Just kids were running everywhere, running amok. Everything was a mess. I'm like, I cannot unplug from my family for that long. It's just a nightmare. And I finally had to cut it off. But I thought, man, look at all that money. I think I made like 150,000 that year. And this was 2010. That's a lot of money. But you know how much I had to pay in taxes out of that? Like 45 grand. Was it worth it? Was it worth all that family time and all the sacrifice and all the 612s in a row? Sundays were pointless. I was just exhausted from 612s. So for 10 months, and I'm like, I'm Gen X. Man, I'm working my butt off. And you wussies that only work 2 or 3 days a week, you're wusses. And look what I'm doing. What I get in the end? That company was bought by another company who fired me. And I got a huge tax bill. And my family fell apart and I had to get back there and clean a bunch of that up. So, I'm just trying to sound the alarm that you need to pay attention to you and what you need. And a job is a job is a job. You're there to do a job. And then when you leave that job is done. You are done. They cannot call you and tell you you have to do something else. If they do, tell them stick it and go find another job. Let's see. Jackie, sorry about this. Now I'm worried. Plan on going to private school. Have you heard of Charles University in Los Angeles Radiology? If anyone has heard anything about school, please let me know. No, I haven't. And again, I'm not saying that radiography as a whole is bad. What I'm saying is you need to protect yourself. You need to not be naive. You need to not go like I was naive when I went to school. I thought, well, I'm the one paying tuition and you need to teach me what I need to know. And you are here to work for me. And that's not how it works at all. The schools will give you minimal information. It's up to you to figure out how to study, how to learn it, how to retain it, up to you to figure out how to take the test, up to you to figure out how to pass it. And really, that's what clinicals are for. In the world of radiography, the schools are only there to teach you what's on the board exam. The clinicals are there to teach you how to actually do the exam. And when you graduate and pass your test and get your job, that test is never going to come up again. What's going to come up every day is a new patient that needs an exam that you learned how to do in your clinicals. Yes, you go over some of that in your clinical in the school, but not much. It's mostly didactic. So try not to go into the school thing being naive, thinking that, I'm here to learn and they're going to teach me and it's going to be handed to me on a silver platter and I just have to consume it and go take this test. And the world is filled with rainbows and butterflies, because it doesn't work that way. And it depends on the school you go to. And here's something you can do. Go to antmini.com and look at the mini awards that they do every year. And they nominate the best radiography schools around the country. And again, it's like any other popularity contest. Who knows who voted for them. But look up your school. Is your school in there? And I think if look back 10 years, and what you'll notice is the same schools are there's some one-offs. But the same schools that are top quality, high quality schools are the ones that keep getting nominated. And those are the ones, if you really, want to go for the gusto, go apply to one of those. But, oftentimes it's about where we live and what we can afford and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't matter what school you apply to, it's all up to you. It's completely up to you as the student to seek out the knowledge, figure out, because you may get taught one thing and what's on the exam is completely different. I've seen that hundreds of times. Students come to me and say, we just took a test and the stuff on the test isn't what they went over in class at all. You'd think it was, but there's disconnects in there a lot of times. And since you can't ever talk about what's on the ARRT board exams, you never know what's going to be on the exam. So, you know, you have all these programs out there that you can subscribe to and take mock exams. How do you know they're going to accurately prepare you when nobody's allowed to share the actual test questions? Nobody can tell you if you pass mine, you're 100% guaranteed you're going to pass, because they don't know unless they have an inside track, which makes you wonder. But nobody can guarantee it. Certainly the schools can't guarantee it. And you know, that's one of the things you can ask in your interview. In fact, I got some videos on that, what to ask in your Xray interview for the school. How do you prepare people for the exam? What's your pass rate? What's your graduation rate? How many people graduate and get a job within the first 3 months out of the program? You know, there's lots of questions you can ask to verify or validate that school before you give 2 years of your time to it. That's another thing. If you think about how archaic this model is, you're going to pay to go work for free for somebody who has gain off of your free work that you're paying to provide. So you're paying the school to teach you, and you're also paying for the hospital to teach you, but the hospital is using you like an employee, and they're getting you because don't fool yourself. You'll be asked to do exams when nobody else is around at some point as a student. They're not supposed to, but they will. They'll be like, oh, I'm right here. It's just one room over. Just go shoot that X-ray while I shoot this one. Why are we still paying for education that benefits another entity and not getting some kind of stipend? I mean, even if I remember right, physician residences have a stipend. So while they're learning, it's abysmal, it's peanuts, but they're getting something. We don't get anything. We get to pay for 2 years to learn from somebody else and work free for somebody else for 2 years in the hopes that this all teaches us enough to pass this mandatory national board exam that we can't work without. And then those guys make you have to take continuing education every 2 years. And now there's this whole CQR thing or CQM, and I don't know, this whole model just can drive you insane if you go down that rabbit hole. So yeah, dirty dad jokes, hate to hear stories. I got plenty of them. They're coming. Leave a comment, tell me what do you want to hear, what's happened at work or what happened in school, or pick a topic. I got tons of them. I think I'll wrap it up there. I guess at the end of it all, one of the things I say a lot in the videos or the Facebook group is, you know, you guys, whether you're a student or an employee, you need to find the common term now, a side hustle. You need to find a side job, a side hobby. You don't necessarily have to make money at it, but you need to find something outside of your job that you can focus on and get joy from, because you never know when something's going to happen to that X-ray job. You could get fired, you could get transferred, you could get downsized, you could get sent home because of COVID and told you have to stay home and not work and not get paid. And if you want to get paid, you got to use your own PTO. That happened. I saw employees run out of all their PTO because they were forced to stay home because the company didn't want to pay them. But they got subsidies from the government for having COVID patients, didn't they? So find something, and that's why I promote, you know, if you're a tech and you make doodads, I promote that on the Facebook group. I let you post your markers and your tumblers and your t-shirts, but I keep all the equipment vendors out of there. I keep the headhunters out of there. They can post somewhere else, but find something else that brings you joy. And if you can't think of anything outside of radiology, then teach an online class for radiology, or mentor somebody else through X-ray school, or, you know, write a book about radiography, or I knew a tech who made coloring books of anatomy, and that's how they kind of segued into something else. Jeremy Enfinger did a how to be a rad tech kind of introductory book that some classes use. Find something outside of this world, because this world is cold and dark and is going to use you up and spit you out. And hopefully you've prepared something on the side for when you're on the other end of this thing. Because if you haven't, because I didn't really, when my whole thing came to a screeching halt right during COVID, I was going, I've got to stay in this. I've got 25 years in this. I don't know what else to do. This is all I've ever known. And it actually took me a couple of years to get out of that and get into something else. And I'm in something now that makes me much happier. It is just as lucrative, if not more lucrative. I set my own hours. We can talk about that some other time. But protect yourself in this field and in any field. You come first. You can't be replaced for what you do. Nobody else in the hospital can do it. So take pride in what you do and stand your ground. You're worth every penny. There you go. Leave me a comment, subscribe, do all the things that they say to do, and I'll be back.